baby, what you telling me? See me, I'm with the gang, lazima hustle.
Wagwan, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of Just to Kick It is a Blessing. Today is a bit of a freestyle topic. We have a special guest. The amazing thing about this guy today is he's much younger than me, but he's been my mentor majority of this year. He's helped me start a couple good habits in my life and helped me build a couple things for a small business that I run. But I'll let him introduce himself officially, and he can tell us a bit about himself. So, yo.
Oh, wow, that was touching, bro. I feel nice. Thank you. So my name is Imani Mureithi. I go by Chief M, Imani Mureithi, either one. I'm 19. I don't know what to say. I do many things. I'm a jack of all trades. Sadly, a master of none. We can talk about that a bit later. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here and have a conversation with Keith.
Nigga, who's Keith?
Oh, that's what it's written on the screen, bro. Keith Tupac Gatiramu, bro.
I'm disturbing you. Yeah, just relax. I'm disturbing you. But anyways, man, first of all, what are you doing right now with your life, man? Tell us a bit about that.
Right now, well, since March, I kind of slowed down on the business aspect of my life, and I've been kind of picking up on things like African history and spirituality and all kinds of abstract concepts, psychedelics, that kind of stuff, learning about how different people think from different walks of life. Been really interesting, actually. That's pretty much what I've been up to.
Before we go into now that African history, those psychedelic things, I wanted to ask you, like currently, right now, are you in uni or where are you?
Yeah, I am. I'm in a business school.
Oh, yeah, where?
In Barcelona.
Oh, and how's that going with COVID and everything?
It's pretty decent, honestly. I mean, the school is doing really well to make the online classes interactive and feel less like a lecture and more like a call that you're talking to, like kind of like this, So they're trying really hard. COVID aside, it's a pretty good school, I think. All the professors are in the industry, so they know what they're talking about. They design the syllabus themselves and everything, so it's pretty cool.
No, that's like a really good thing to hear, because the one thing that really amazes me about our system of education is you have people teaching you, yet they have no experience or very little experience in that field. Mm-hmm. So when you're telling me that, you've come from a business school where, the professors in the industry, I'm sure the content that you're getting is crazy,
Oh, yeah, definitely, 100%. So, I have this teacher, his name is Gislan, crazy guy, he's French, right? So he'll tell you an example of something, and then he'll tell you a whole story about his life and how he went into this whole industry thing and how he knows a guy who does this thing with rent, and if you need something like this, just hit him up. That's value. You don't have to pass a class. You just need to make the teacher like you, and you're pretty set for life, Yeah.
It makes sense. I also saw online, I've been seeing an advertisement of something I've been considering to take is MBEs in entrepreneurship taught by actual entrepreneurs. Have you seen that kind of advertisement?
Oh, yeah, I have.
Yeah, I don't know what the school is called, but they normally show these 3 young entrepreneurs. I think the one for Netflix, Shazam, and there's another company.
The idea of entrepreneurship is very abstract. I think the definition of entrepreneur is bearer of risk, someone who takes risks. So I think that having an MBA or a course that's taught by people who actually know what they're talking about or can give you case studies to work with that they were in, I think that's really valuable. So what are you thinking? Are you going to do it or?
I don't know, right now, right now I'm also just a bit confused, trying to put my life in order. As you also know, the year is ending. A lot of things have happened that none of us expected. For example, I expected to graduate this year. I don't know if that's still happening. So what I've decided to do is, sit back for the next few months before, December. And, plan my life around and think about, the next stage of, of my life.
What does that look like for you?
I know I definitely need to do a master's. Even where I've been doing my internship, they keep on telling me that it's important that next year you do a master's. And when you come back, we don't mind taking you back. But we when you're young and energetic, it's important that you do as much as you can in school before you now come to the outside world. Because once you start working, once all these other things come into your life, it becomes a bit hard to go back to school. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. You become busy and you can go back to school.
Yeah, so I totally agree with them on that. And then, just working on building some of the projects I do. But what I'd like to hear about is why you've decided to look into Africanism, psychedelics, and all those things. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah, sure. So it was actually a bit of a 1-2 punch. So, I lived in Kenya for 17 years, and then I moved to the Middle East, and now I'm in Spain, but we can talk about that later. So it might be just me and my friends, but when you're black in Africa, it's like being white in Europe, everybody else is black, so it doesn't really matter if you're black. Another thing is that when you look at black people outside Africa, specifically African Americans, there's an image of them that's portrayed that is very, trapper, gangster, uneducated. You don't see lawyers.
Or sportsman.
Yeah, you're either an athlete, a rapper, or just a cloud chaser,
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So it's that's how they were portrayed to us. And the fact that you corrected me and you said an athlete justifies the point. That's how you see black people in America. But black people don't control the media, and that's how they're portrayed. So when I left Africa, living in a very comfortable life in Africa, you and I could say confidently, but that by international standards, we live very comfortable lives. Yeah. Our parents worked hard and whatnot. So when I left Africa, when I left Kenya, and I lived in the Middle East and Europe, when you look back at Africa from a third-person perspective, there's a whole different view that you see. The view of it's just slums and problems and corruption and genocides and all these problems every single day, and it's messed up. Why is there no how do you say portrayal or narrative where black people are just chilling? Why is there always a problem, or why is someone always getting shot, or why can people just be black in peace, or black and prospering? Why does the story always have to be negative and ugly? So,
yeah, I get what you're saying.
I stumbled upon this, and this guy was talking about how Jesus was black. And I found that really interesting. So I was like, oh, Jesus was black? Wow, let me look into this. This was sometime last year.
Yeah, the one for they're saying he's Ethiopian or something like that.
No, in the Bible, the way they describe Jesus is not what he looks like. They say that he has feet that are bronze that have been burnt, and his hair was white and wool. Black people, their hair is like wool, and if his feet were black and bronze or whatever, then he was black. So it made me curious. And as I started reading the literature and what people were saying on it, some people were saying that it doesn't matter what color he was. And that's true. It doesn't. And it didn't for some time until race became a card that Europeans began to play. Okay?
Yeah.
So like it wouldn't have mattered if racism wasn't a thing, but now it is, and that's why it matters. So I don't know if you've heard what the Spanish used to do to African babies. I'll tell you right now if you haven't.
No. Tell us.
So basically, the Spanish would take African babies who were breastfeeding from their mothers, and they would bash their heads into rocks, like swing them by the feet, and then bash their heads into rocks as a sacrifice. Like some kind
Well, that sounds painful.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. No, the kids would die. So they would bash their heads into rocks and kill the babies as a sacrifice, some kind of Christian sacrifice or whatever the fuck they were doing. Or whatever they were doing. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on here, sorry.
No. Do you, bro? Like, this is meant for everyone to, like, express, teach, you know. And I'm really learning a lot, you know, because, like, I think before I talked to you today,
Yeah.
one of the things that I also feel like I've been struggling with of late is identity, you know. So, like, now what you're telling me is, you know, it's like something for me to learn and, you know, go out there and be like, you know, like, who am I, you know? Because I feel like I've reached now that point in my life where I need to determine my identity in order to reach the, you know, in order to do what I was brought enough to do anything or everything I can do best to my, you know, my capability.
Yeah.
I also, you know, they say one of the things that most people regret is when they're on their dying bed and saying, I could have done this or I could have been this, you know. Yeah, and I was listening to one of the speakers earlier on, and he was saying some of the mistakes most of us make is we fail to ask ourselves these 5 questions, and that's why we never, you know, we just remain there, like you get. So the first question was, who am I? So that talks about your whole identity. The next question is, where am I from? Then the third question is, why am I here? So your purpose, you know. The fourth question is, what can I do? So that talks about your potential. And the fifth question is, where am I going?
Yeah.
You get, so
that's interesting. You should share that with me later.
No, I'll share it with you. Like, a very good speaker speaks for about an hour and a half. But like listening to it has like literally got me to ask, you know, myself like certain questions. And, you know, to be honest, these questions are hard because, you know, no one really likes to answer questions about them. You know, and yesterday I was working on another episode I'm about to talk about here. And it says, the longest journey is the journey inwards. So I don't know if you get what that means.
The journey to find yourself or whatever?
Yeah, the journey to find yourself. And basically, okay, I'll talk about more about that. But basically, from just that one phase that I saw and decided to, you know, do research and learn about it was, you know, in order for us to grow, you know, we have to take a hard look at our lives and decide what is working and what's not working. You know? But a lot of us just go through life as life. You know, we take it as it is, you know. You know, and that's one of the reasons I believe like so many of us fail in life, you know. Yeah, and and like you said, you know, like life is okay, I hate to explain it like this, but you know, life is a game, you know.
Yeah, it's 100% a game, yeah.
You get, and like every game, you need to know the rules in order to succeed. For example, I'll tell you, like golf. Golf has thousands of rules, you know. If you went and played golf today without knowing any rules, you'd be penalized by the game so much that, you know, like, you wouldn't be able to beat the game, let's say. Yeah. Because in golf, you play against the course. Yeah. But there's so many rules that happen that say, oh, because he did this, he deserves a 1-stroke penalty. He did this, he deserves a 2-stroke penalty, you know. And when I look at it, that's how life is.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyways, I think I've talked a lot, so let me give it back to you.
No, it was interesting.
I don't know if I've confused your train of thought.
No. I think I was talking about the Spanish and what they did.
Yeah, the babies.
Oh, yeah, so they used to swing Spanish babies by the feet and then bash their heads into like rocks. It was really messed up stuff. And they did that as a sacrifice to Jesus or like God or whatever. And this, to me, is the biggest, as far as I'm concerned, one of the biggest reasons as to why it would have been important for Jesus to be portrayed as the black man that he is described to be in the Bible. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, Jesus was black and, you know, like yada, yada, yada. But if he was, there's a very powerful psychological phenomenon called association, right? So you have a company, yeah? Tupac. You have a company. What color is your company? Like, what are the company colors?
Green and white.
Why?
Because, first of all, when you were helping me come up with the logo and everything, you told me people associate certain colors with certain behaviors or habits or something like that. For example, like purple is like associated with like royalty and things. You get white in some places is associated with pure, you know. Yeah, so I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so imagine...
And look, there's another example. The color white being associated with pureness, you know.
Exactly. And
then black, what's a black associated with?
Like bad things and evil and that stuff. That is
juju.
You know, we didn't write that narrative. That's just what other people, specifically
taught us,
wrote about us and them and the narrative that they fabricated. Yeah. So if Jesus was black, right, and then you have these Europeans who come from Europe, obviously, and then they come to Africa, and they've been worshiping, you know, like a black Jesus. When they come to Africa and they see black people, the first association I would assume might be, oh, they look like Jesus, you know? And perhaps the response or how they went about the negotiations would have been kinder or different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Also, how black people view themselves, you know? Like, they don't have any historical references to say, oh man, we were great, we did that. Like, it's only over the past 15, 20 years that black people have really started to educate themselves on their history and where they came from and that kind of stuff. Like today I was reading about how Africans discovered the Americas before Christopher Columbus. And the proof of that was various, like the calabash, and you know what a calabash is?
Nah, tell me, bro. You know me, his history and me are not friends.
No, a calabash is it's like a plant, weird thing that even Kikuyus have it. We have it, we drink out of it, we use it to store water and all that stuff. So the theory is that West Africans went to the Americas and they took calabashes because of to carry water, of course. They took calabashes, they took cotton, they took all kinds of things. And when Christopher Columbus got there, he was actually the last person there. I'm not too sure about how factual this is, but it made sense to me. Maybe it's because that's the truth that I'm looking for, but you never know.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. You know, like, like, back, I think there was a time, like, my dad and I were talking, yeah, and, like, one of the conversations we had was, as Black people, we need to start telling our stories more, like you said, if we let someone else write your story, it can't be as good as if you wrote your story, or it can't be as true, like, no matter how close you are to someone, no one can write your story like you do, and I think that's one of our, like, that's one of the problems we have.
100%.
I think we need to come out and speak more. We need to come out and write more, make make more movies, tell our stories, through our eyes.
That you mentioned that because so in ancient, let's call it ancient because that's what it is to us, like ancient Africa, or like pre-colonialist Africa, let's be generous. The way history was told was through stories, like oral history. Okay, so we tell stories about how things happened and where we came from and the routes that we took and the plants that we eat and the traditions that we have and why you marry this woman or that. Like, the things that we do, we used oral history. Okay, this was very common throughout not just Africa, but like Asia and South America and the indigenous people of Australia as well. So it's a very common thing, oral history. Where I think Europeans get to have the upper hand, like you said, is they really wrote down everything. They wrote everything down. Even the bad and terrible things that they did, they wrote it down. And that's how we know that they did these things, because they wrote it down. So, for example, like Kikuyus, like, are you Kikuyu? So, like, a Kikuyu, we don't have a lot of written, we barely have any written history.
Before you even go further, can I tell you, So, I've been working on some projects which, once it's like confirmed, I'll like let you know about it. Like, not okay, I'll tell you, but I don't want to put it out there first. But one of the people I met to discuss the project, asked me, before you go any further, I want to ask you something. How many heroes do you know from your tribe? And me, first of all, being in a British system school my whole life, my Kenyan history is, is really bad, So, of course, the only two people I said, Jomo Kenyatta and Dedan Kimathi.
I was thinking the same.
Which, listen, but which I really didn't know about. It's just I know Jomo Kenyatta was the president, Dedan Kimathi was a freedom fighter, and his statue is there uptown, but then they're like, and the lady told me, and that's the same thing, because she's trying to, she's been focusing on some project, and the thing is, she did the same in Lamu, she did the same in, 3 other places, can't remember, and she was like, other than one, and that's maybe the most popular guy, because, guys have put out his story, no one else knows, But if you look at other people, there's so much, around them, think about it, who was the, even something and that's the thing that I was even talking about with Jamie guys the other day. I was like, I was trying to tell him that for me, I believe we should, as Africans as well, we should come out more and sell ourselves. You get
me?
What I'd like to say is we as Africans feel like we shouldn't talk too much about ourselves. We've gotten that thing for it's cocky, Yeah, but then you remember the entrepreneurship classes I told you I was attending, we had a lot of like foreign speakers, especially like African Americans and like now white people. And the thing is, what amazed me was you'd find like a teacher who's maybe like a white lady about like maybe 28 years old, and you'd find like maybe a CEO of a company who's about like 45. Yeah. One's a Kenyan, one's a white person. Yeah. The white person would talk so much about themselves, you know?
Yeah.
You get? They don't sell themselves short. They use every moment they can, you know, to tell their story. When you look at us now, us other people, like the black people, it's like we're ashamed, you know?
Yeah. But I think that's not our fault. I think that's because, dude, let me ask you something here. I told you to tell me about Kenya's history. Where does it start? Like, isn't it 1960, 1962? Yeah. So we can talk pre-independence, post-independence. Let's say 1960 to 1964, like that time where Kenya really, you know, started to be Kenya. And since then, how much have we accomplished as a nation to the point where we get to tell our own stories as a nation? The answer is not that much. You look at a place like Europe, these guys have stories. They have so many stories. They have so much history. Like you walk anywhere, you walk into a museum, these guys will tell you stories like, oh, this happened on this street on this day because of this and that. And like, and that's why people are so proud to be Spanish or like French or you know, Belgian or like German, because they have so much history. And there's something I read. It said like people are connected by stories. So that white guy that was talking about himself, you remembered him, and you remember that he was talking about himself. And I'm sure if I asked you about him, you can tell me something about him. Yeah. So there's a power in stories and history, and like you said, we should sell ourselves more, but we have to understand what to sell, because what are you going to talk about as a Kenyan? Let me ask you, what are you going to talk about?
No, like in that situation, you know, like there's not much to talk about. But you see, like I'll give you an example. You know, like that white lady was like, okay, so I finished uni here. From there, I worked in this company. In this company, I did this. This is what I learned. No. Then I worked in this company. Then I got an internship to do this, and then this. You know, like there was like you said, you know, like I don't want to go into what she said exactly, but you know, there was, you know, some flow, you know. Unlike the other guy who comes and says, hi, my name is this and this, and I'm currently the CEO of this company.
Yeah.
You get? Like, yeah, you are the CEO of the company, but like, you can tell people what, you know, the path that you've taken to there. You know, so, like, and like you said, people associate with stories. You know, it shows that it's like a journey, you get? It's not like the guy just landed there.
Yeah.
You get? Yeah. And like for me, one of the things that I feel like really helped Obama was his book. You know?
Okay. Explain.
His book made people be able to know his story and therefore associate with him.
Yeah, okay.
No.
That makes sense.
In my opinion, I feel like if he didn't have a book, you know, I don't think he'd have been that successful. But that's just my opinion.
I think that you have a point, but do you know what fundamental attribution error is? Okay, so fundamental attribution error is, it's this thing where you try, not you, but people try to give credit to one thing when it's a much more complicated situation. So, for example, he would not have been as successful if he did not have a book. Maybe because he has a wife and a family. Maybe, you know, if he didn't have Michelle and Malia and No, I feel bad for forgetting the other one's name, but anyway.
I don't. No cover. I don't think even I
Good. So now I
remember
don't feel
the
so
name,
bad.
bro.
Yeah, but if he did not have his wife and his two daughters, would he have won? You see? So is it the book or the family? And you see, or maybe it's a bit of both. Or is it maybe because he's black as well? Or like half black? And maybe it's because his dad is Kenyan and not African American. You know? Maybe that's why the white people in America also voted for him, because maybe they have something against their own African Americans. You see what I mean? Like, yeah.
I get what you're saying. I totally understand.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying. In my opinion, I feel like it played a good part. You know, it was a good, like, let's say, stepping stone.
Okay, makes sense.
You get? Yeah, that's my opinion.
Okay. Do you ever want to get into politics?
Wow. Okay, you know, like, basically my internship right now is in politics. Learning about it but it's something I definitely want to study, because I'm really inspired by the MP I work for. Let me just leave it at that. Yeah, I'm really inspired by him, the work he's doing for his constituency. And yeah, so probably it's something that I'll look into, but as of now, no. But as well, you know, you never know where life takes you. Yeah, but maybe for the next 5 years, I don't really like see myself like, you know, I want to learn about it. So when I'm there, like, I can, you know, make an impact. Remember what I told you? Learn the rules of the game before you play the game. You see, and I think that's the problem with the politics in Kenya. A lot of these people enter politics without really understanding the rules of the game. And therefore, that's why they fail. And that's why we're always having all these things happening around us. You know? Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so for now, I'm just learning.
I agree. It's good to take time to learn. That's what I'm doing right now as well, in terms of business. So, yeah. Politics, I think, is interesting in Africa. It's very interesting. I think, and this is a bit of just, you know, speculation, but I'm of the opinion that politics in Africa is like a blank canvas. Have you ever read the Constitution? Yeah.
Have I ever read the Constitution? No. First of all, no. And that's very embarrassing considering where I work.
So, like, no one
I need to actually, even the BBI.
People don't read these things. For example, so I don't know how true this is, but our new Constitution actually limits the power that Uhuru has. It's limited.
This is what? So. The BBI?
I'm not sure.
The one that they're trying to pass,
the one
basically.
That is in place right now.
Okay, I wouldn't know.
I might be wrong on this, so you have to fact check this. But this Constitution has limited Uhuru's power, okay? So, I'm not very into politics, but I personally don't think that Uhuru is stealing from the government. I think he has way too much money to be stealing a couple of million shillings from the government. That's just my opinion. But I also think that because of the Constitution, he doesn't have the control that he would need to order.
But let me tell you, this I think this is a story for another day between me and you. Yeah, I think so. Let's actually just go back to what you were saying about Africa, you know. So, there's a song by Dave. It's called Black. I don't know if you've heard it.
Yeah.
You've heard it, yeah? I think that's like, it's very deep. It's like, one of the songs that, like tries to teach us about like, about like our history, Like there's even a part where it says, and show you pictures of our farm on their knees. Tell us we used to be barbaric. We had actual queens.
Yeah, that was more in the what's it called? In the Mali Empire and the Kingdom of Ghana and Nubia and Kemet. So these are like ancient African kingdoms and civilizations that came about and fell at different times. So yeah, we actually had a lot of history. I think it's pretty stupid to think that Africa doesn't have history. There's this theory that the reason that Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, so like Kenya and like the lower parts of Africa, basically, the reason we don't have all these kingdoms and stuff is because climate in this area is very, very, there's two reasons. I'll tell you them. Climate in Africa is not as predictable as it is in Europe and West Africa. Okay? So we'll have drought and then we have a lot of rain, and then we have really weird climate, okay? When climate isn't predictable, people migrate. Like you don't know when the next time you're going to get rain is, so you move. And so that's how migration started happening. People started moving out of East Africa and like different parts of Africa instead of moving around. So they never had time to settle and build like a kingdom, okay? That's one theory. The second is also that Africa is huge. Africa is so big. People don't really understand how big this place is. Like, it is so big. I cannot emphasize how big it is.
Bro, first of all, that you said that thing for migration. Like, bro, you actually just taught me like something crazy. Because even in that like Dave's song, he says something like, Black is my Ghanaian brother reading into scriptures, doing research on his lineage, and finding out that he's Egyptian. Black is people naming your countries on what they trade the most: Coast of Ivory, Gold Coast, and the Grain Coast. But most importantly, to show you how deep this pain goes, West Africa, Benin, they called it the Slave Coast.
I've heard that.
Bro, like, like even today, I was listening, like I told you, I was listening to something like, just things on identity crisis, And there was some girl, she's called Kylie. I was actually in kindergarten with her, yeah. And she has these TED Talks in Kent, in the University of Kent. And, she basically just says about how, like, a lot, like, just the same thing for just this migration, and finding out that, like, as much as you say you're Kenyan, there could be some other part of African within you.
That makes a lot of sense. So, like, when I was telling you about the calabash, okay? So they found, so in West Africa, they have a bunch of Bantu tribes, okay? Bantu tribes, Bantu, Nilot, Kushite tribes. You know about them?
Yeah. No, bro, I don't know the history. Okay,
so Africans can broadly, sub-Saharan Africans can broadly be split up into three groups. So that's like Bantu people, that's like Kikuyu, Embu, Meru, Akamba, parts of Congo. These guys are usually like brownish, like how we're brown. Like, then you have the Nilotic people, which are like the Luos and Sudanese. Think about the River Nile and the people who come down the River Nile. So there's a whole idea that actually when Africans were fleeing, like the black Egyptians were fleeing from Egypt. Some of them followed the Nile and became the Sudanese and all that. I don't know how true that is either, because I don't know. But you have the people who live along the Nile, and they're like usually darker than other people, and they're taller. And that's why sometimes some Luos look like Sudanese and vice versa, you know? Then you have... Yeah.
That's what she actually said. Mm-hmm. She gave that Luo Sudanese
Then you
thing.
have the Kushites, which are the Somalis and the Ethiopians, the guys with, like soft hair, from the kingdom of Kush. Really interesting stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of diversity in Africa. But I was saying, in West Africa, they have they use calabash. I don't know what they are, but just Google calabash.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I've searched.
They use calabashes to store water and like drink porridge or stuff like that. They use calabashes in West Africa and in Kenya, 4,000 miles away from each other. Okay? And the tribes that I think use them are Bantu tribes. So I kind of in there, but I don't want to, pull anything out of my ass and just, tell people it's facts, because I don't know. It's just, that's another thing about African history. It's so, you have to search so hard just to find an ounce of evidence for a connection or whatever you're looking for. It's difficult to find. It's not as easy as just Googling who was my grandfather if my surname is Smith, So our lineage is difficult. Like you said in that Dave song, finding out he's Egyptian. That's a whole different story on whitewashing, and you know what whitewashing is? Yeah, so whitewashing is basically white people taking black concepts or other concepts, it could be Indian, could be Latino, could be Asian, and making them overwhelmingly white or eliminating any traces of
the black aspect in it. So I'm sure you believe in that thing for the Sphinx.
The Sphinx was a black woman.
That's why they cut the nose.
I don't know if I believe it, but I don't think that it's not true. One of the things you have to really employ when you start reading about history, especially as a black person, because there's a lot of bullshit out there as well, or like anything in general. Actually, you have to be a really critical thinker. You have to be able to say, I want this to be true, but how true is it? So otherwise anyone will just sell you whatever the fuck you want to hear, and you'll buy it, and you'll be an idiot for the rest of your life. Anyway, so whitewashing. So you know how they say like, oh, the Egyptians were black and white and all that stuff. It's true that they were black, but it's also true that at some point they were, I don't want to say white, I don't think they were white, but they were almost Arab-ish. If you look at the depictions of pharaohs and all that, and the hieroglyphs and the paintings that they do, they can clearly distinct between a black person and a white person. They painted both, so it's evident that it was a multiracial, like there were more than just black people in that area. And then when the Romans came, I think it was the Romans, the black people who were there, they fled to West Africa, which is probably how West Africa and down the Nile. So probably how Dave's friend is Egyptian.
Wow, bro, what? Your history is crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff, bro.
Yeah, bro, send me some of this stuff.
Sure, bro. I'm always down to share. I just don't like talking about it like out loud too much, because I sound like I just sound too loud. It's just people are not ready for this conversation, bro. They're not ready.
No, but I think like you said, like a lot of people are not ready for so many conversations, and that's the reason why I even started this podcast, was to have some of the conversations that like people aren't ready to have. Yeah, so like I really appreciate like you coming out and speaking about these things. Yeah, maybe you can tell us shortly about the psychedelics, and then we call it a day. But for sure, with the kind of knowledge you've told, you shared with me today and everything, like I will definitely have you on more episodes. It's crazy how it's crazy how you're a few years younger than me, but you've imparted so much knowledge. You've taught me so much, and I'm actually waiting for you to send me more so I can learn a bit more. But yeah, tell us, what is it you're learning about psychedelics?
So psychedelics are conventionally looked down upon. They're seen as hard drugs, but I don't think that they're bad. Okay, so when I say that,
I hope your dad is listening to this.
Yeah. My dad knows, about psychedelics, and he's very aware of these things. So, and I'd rather he knows. So if something goes wrong, I could just tell him, something went wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I'm under the impression that, well, I know for a fact that psychedelics have been used by different tribes and different civilizations throughout time. So I know they used in South America to this day. They've been used for like thousands of years. I know Africans, like some tribes in Africa, use them because the acacia tree.
Yeah.
So some acacia trees have DMT, which is dimethyltryptamine.
That one, for the one that gives you that feeling for when you're dead or something, when you're about to die.
Yeah, ego death.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it has DMT, and there is evidence that the ancient Egyptians were very aware of the pineal gland, which is a gland in your brain that is the only part of your brain that produces DMT. So you actually produce that drug naturally, just in really, really low doses, okay? So ancient Egyptians knew about it. They knew about the third eye and everything, which is where we learned about the third eye, okay? So it is in African culture and knowledge of psychedelics. In terms of mushrooms, they are used for like a lot of things. So you know how people use weed for anxiety?
Yeah.
People with PTSD, like army vets and all that stuff, they use shrooms for like rewiring their brain. You can actually rewire your brain with shrooms. So if you do therapy sessions with mushrooms, and let's say every time you hear fireworks, you start panicking, and you have all these panic attacks because of PTSD. If you do therapy sessions with mushrooms, you can actually rewire your brain, because what it does to your brain is it actually softens or like refills the grooves, which is kind of hard to explain, but think of a groove in your mind or like your brain like a habit, okay? So that habit is, every time it happens, it goes deeper and deeper, okay? But when you take mushrooms, you can refill it and you can start from the top. So that reaction to that thing is no longer there. So you can beat addiction, and they're not addictive, by the way. Psychedelics are not addictive. You beat addiction. People have beat PTSD. People have been able to. The next kind of few things are anecdotal, but people say they've been able to regain their hearing. Like people with deaf, they regain their hearing. It's all sorts of interesting stuff. Then you have the people who say, you could travel into other dimensions, and that's.
I've had that. Yeah, like I know a couple of people who have like done the thing, and like like some of the stories are scary,
Yeah.
But then, like, one of my friends also told me, like, when you take them, you have to be in a solid state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you can have a really bad trip. You get?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's based on your state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's true. Psychedelics is a very broad topic, but they have more benefits than they do downsides, and I think that there's been a lot of advancements made on psychedelics and things like depression and mental health, and that's why, to me, it's really important now. I think that Africa should, countries in Africa, let's say some countries in Africa should start to be more lenient with the way we treat this drug, or however you want to say it, okay? Because we have this really bad habit of just looking at what the West is doing and be like, oh, that's what you think about that? Oh yeah, me too. Like,
it's true.
Copycat shit. Like things, something like, I don't want to like sound like an asshole, but something like democracy. Why do we have democracy? Why?
Yeah.
It doesn't, like, our countries are so young. I don't think democracy is helping anyone at this point. Like, if you look at
yo, that's the craziest thing. Hello?
If you look at the countries that are doing well, like Rwanda, for example, they kind of have a democracy, but that's not really a democracy.
It's not.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. But I guess, like, even for me, one of the things I look back and, like, think is democracy at this point does us no justice,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially for a young country with a lot of, like, very, like, with such low education levels.
Mm-hmm.
You get? Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you see, and this is also something I was talking about, like, to one of my friends yesterday, is like, a lot of the people will vote for BBI just because of who stands behind it.
Mm-hmm.
You get?
Yeah.
But see, the thing is also, if they read it, they can't understand
BBI. I don't
it.
know about BBI. Tell me about it.
Okay, bro, we'll have that conversation, man. Anyways, what I'm saying is, it's because of who's behind it. You get? Yeah, on one side you have one party, on the other side you have one party,
Yeah.
Yeah, and no one literally reads into it, And I feel bad for even being such an educated African that still voted based on certain aspects instead of reading through manifestos and finding out what people are willing to do for us. Because if I read through some of those manifestos, I'd be like, yo, this guy, this is Cap, this guy, okay, can do this, Yeah.
Yeah, but we're not.
And imagine that's for us people,
Mm-hmm.
So now imagine the other person who cannot understand what these other people are saying.
Yeah, let me tell you something really interesting. That it's philosophy now. So let's assume you're a pilot or like an engineer, okay?
Yeah.
So actually, no, let's assume you're a pilot. So you're a pilot and you're flying at 40,000 feet, and something goes wrong in the cockpit, okay? So what you do is you decide to come out into the cabin where the passengers are. You see all the passengers, you look at them and you say, guys, I need someone to give me advice on what to do. Now, there are 3 people in the front seats, like in the front row seats, like right in front of you, who are, one is an aeronautical engineer, so an engineer for planes, one is an astrophysicist, and the last one is a pilot himself, okay? The rest of them are like just regular niggas, okay? Who are you gonna ask?
You're gonna ask the engineer.
Yeah, the engineer, the pilot, or anyone who is qualified, okay?
Yeah.
So if you have a country, Okay, you have a country that is struggling economically or socially or agriculturally. Why are you asking people, which is the average person, which is you, me, some people who are educated, some people who are less educated? Why are you asking us what to do with the country? Why do we get to vote based off what someone says, and that politician knows we don't understand what he's saying?
Yeah. Anyways, bro.
It's tricky, bro. So,
Anyways, I'd like to thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you for being a guest on this podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you for shedding some light. Thank you for, inspiring me. Thank you for being my mentor as well. Thank you for having some hard conversations with me.
Mm-hmm.
And what's your parting shot? What's the last thing you want to tell the crowd as you leave?
Find out who you want to be and understand that you want to be that person forever. So you're going to be, a musician, go be a musician. That doesn't mean you have to be a musician for the next 30 years. You could do it for a year or two. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to change who you want to be. You're allowed to change who you are. So you can be whatever you want to be whenever you want to be.
Wow. Thank you so much for everyone who's tuned in. Have a lovely day or a lovely night or whatever it is. And God bless you all. Goodbye.
You see fakes and I see through. You get pesa, yeah, me too. Lights in my room blue. Me pimp, I pimp my room. I pimp your chick too. Oh boy, you look like crystals. Police see that's an issue. Baby, what you telling me? See me, I'm with the gang, lazima hustle. Yeah. Now Bado demons chasing me. Bado, I'm still